Joining us now is a great friend and very serious Catholic, a devout Catholic. On this Easter Monday, this news broke. It is Michael Knowles from The Michael Knowles Show. When I want guidance and wisdom on all things Catholicism, I go to Michael Knowles. Michael, great to see you.
Charlie, it's great to be with you. I'm sorry that I can't be on camera. The timing of this is really odd. I was walking down this morning to the Easter egg hunt at the White House, and I got my whole family with me at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I see that the Holy Father has died. And I thought, of all the mornings to take off work, this is probably one of the worst ones I could have taken off. But alas, I'm glad that I could at least phone in, because I think people are having a lot of trouble processing the news. I mean, you and I have talked about the Pope for years at this point, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There are plenty of conservatives and conservative Catholics have had a lot of questions with Pope Francis and problems with some of the things he's done. So there's no sugarcoating. But I think when we consider his legacy, the most notable aspect of it to me is that left-right political analysis doesn't totally map onto ancient institutions. That's kind of my biggest takeaway with Pope Francis, because whenever we think we can pin him down, we say, all right, he's Argentinian, he comes from this kind of left-wing economic background, and he'll come out and say something like, gay marriage is a machination of the father of lies to deceive and confuse the children of God. Every time we think he's going soft on some social issue, he'll say abortion is an assassination. Abortionists are hired assassins. And so you can't really pin him down. And I think part of the reason for that is just the weight of the Catholic Church. It's just been around for so long. And so we can't, our modern notions of politics, they take you as far as they take you, but it would be a disservice to the man, really, to try to just minimize him in that way.
So his passing was today. We've only lived through three popes. I don't know how I'm guessing. I don't know your age exactly, Michael, but yeah, three popes.
Yeah, I'm not 60. Yeah.
I was going to say that's right. And just think about that. I mean, rather monumental how few popes there are. And so let's get technical for a second, Michael. I, as you know, am not Catholic. I'm an evangelical. A lot of respect for Catholics, and a lot of people that I care about are Catholic, and we know a lot of good local Catholics here, including local father. What is the College of Cardinals? What is about to happen? So everyone meets in Rome, Sistine Chapel. Who's involved in it? It's kind of a good old boys network, is what I'm told. Did Pope Francis put a lot of his allies in there? What? Just walk us through the technical details of what we can expect for the selection of a new pope, because it gets a little rusty here because we've only seen it a couple times in our lifetime.
That's true. And what we're doing right now, has been happening for about 2,000 years, which is immediately when the seat is vacant, they call it sede vacante, when a pope dies, immediately everyone starts talking about who's the next one going to be, how does it happen? So the Cardinal Camerlengo comes out. This is his position in the Vatican. He's announced the Pope's death, and there will be a period of about 15 to no more than 20 days of mourning. And then the College of Cardinals is going to assemble. The cardinals are bishops who are picked by the Pope and as sort of advisors and have positions within the Vatican. Bishops under the age of 80 cardinals under the age of 80 can vote for a pope in the College of Cardinals. So they're not only within the College of Cardinals, but they're cardinal electors. They're all going to meet. There are about 180 of them right now who are eligible to vote. They're going to go into the Sistine Chapel, and then you're not going to hear anything else. The way that you're going to know that they picked a pope is through smoke coming out of the Vatican. So, classically, you're looking for the white smoke or the black smoke. And then when the right smoke comes up, then they're going to say, Habemus Papam. So who's it going to be? Because, again, not to sugarcoat some of the questions that have come up under the Francis pontificate, a lot of people are saying, is the next pope going to be really liberal? Is he going to, I don't know, try to undermine the Catholic tradition or something like that? And again, it's really hard to predict these things, but just because Pope Francis has appointed now so many cardinals does not necessarily mean that the cardinals are politically liberal or, side with Pope Francis on this issue or that issue. A lot of these popes are in the developing world. A lot of them are socially very, very conservative. And so the ones who are up for it right now, one who's been talked about is Cardinal Pizzaballa. He's the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem. That would be quite interesting, given what a touch point Jerusalem has been in the Israel-Gaza conflict. Another one who's up for it would be Peter Erdo. He's in Hungary, also considered moderate to conservative. There are a few who seem to be a little bit more liberal. That would be Cardinal Zuppi, Matteo Zuppi, or Cardinal Parolin. But again, we don't really know. In some ways, it's kind of like the Supreme Court justices. Republicans pick these Supreme Court justices, and then half of the time they go on and disappoint us. They rule in ways that are totally different than we expected. And that could happen, as well with popes. I mean, just to use the example of John Paul II, who everyone loves. Don't forget, John Paul II was a child of Vatican II, of this major ecumenical council, which resulted in all sorts of reforms that some of the reforms that followed the Second Vatican Council, some of us think had some problems with them, especially those of us who love the traditional Latin Mass, the traditional liturgy. And yet, Pope John Paul II, and Pope Benedict for that matter, considered perhaps even more conservative. Both of these guys come out of the Vatican Council, and yet they become some of the most stalwart, conservative-seeming figures of our lifetime. So I guess getting back to the top, that's what I mean when I say you can't totally map this stuff onto left-right politics. And also, you might think you've got a slam dunk with whichever cardinal is going to be the next pope. It doesn't have to be a cardinal. It technically, I suppose, could be me, but no one's picked up the phone yet to call me. So, you think you might know what the next pontificate's going to look like. Really, at this point, we have no idea.
What do you want to see in the next pope? I mean, obviously it would help if he's Catholic, but what would you like to see as far as the advocacy internationally? You mentioned John Paul II. As I was raised, my grandmother, incredibly devout Catholic, wonderful person. We grew up talking about John Paul II, about his moral clarity, about his uncompromising views on the protective life, and honestly, how he believed the West was the best. He was an articulate and effective critic of the Soviet Union, being the Polish Pope.
Oh, yeah.
He was vehemently anti-communist. He made no mystery or no mistake with that. What would you like to see in the next pope? And let's talk less regionally or less biographically, but from a positional, let's just say from the position of the pope, what would you like to see?
Right. What's he going to do? Not that anyone's called to ask me. However, but you have called to ask me, so I'm happy to answer, and maybe people in the Curia could listen. I think what would be really helpful to the church in the next pope is to have a pope who is not hostile to tradition, to the traditional liturgy, what we call the Mass of the Ages, the traditional Latin Mass. A lot of people think the traditional Latin Mass is just the new Mass that we have, but in Latin. That's not true. They're really different Masses. The new Mass has removed a lot of prayers. The new Mass actually could be said in Latin, but it usually is not. The reason I mention this is not just because I'm a fuddy-duddy and I have bow ties or something. It's because there is so much beauty in this Mass that endured substantially unchanged for about 1,400 years. There's so much beauty that it's attracting a lot of people back to the church.
That is true.
You're seeing these
that is
amazing stories.
objectively true. That's right.
You saw this in France just on Easter Sunday. You had a record number of baptisms. In the UK now, you've got this massive resurgence in the Catholic Church. In England, for goodness sakes, this is the birthplace. This is the land of Henry VIII, and yet now Catholics are outnumbering Anglicans. I mean, it's this unthinkable. I don't know what you want to call it. Springtime for the Church. A lot of the people who are converting not because of innovations or electric guitars or something, but because of
careful.
The old smells and bells. Yeah. Listen, I play electric guitar. I'm not totally opposed to electric guitars.
I'm kidding. You're onto something. You're onto something. You're not wrong.
I mean, they love it. I mean, I think you could say this, Charlie, even from the evangelical perspective, where people are returning, it's where they find orthodoxy. It's not where they want more of the world. Right? They want something a little higher than the world, at least for Sunday morning.
Well,
that would be what I would hope for in a pope.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about this in the last segment here, which is especially young men. They see a world consumed by evil and falling apart, and they want one thing that hasn't changed in 2,000 years. And they say, hey,
That's right.
this place has lasted,
Simple as.
and I know it's going to last another 2,000 years because it hasn't changed. So that's what I want. Michael, in closing here, what is a timeline? When can we expect a new pope, would you say? And I'm sure there'll be a lot of coverage and drama out of Rome in the coming days and weeks.
Well, officially, there's no campaigning. There's no jockeying. And of course, the reality might differ from the official way it's supposed to go.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I could see us having, I bet we could have a pope within 3 weeks, or maybe just after 3 weeks. I don't think it's going to take very long. I think that people have been expecting this now ever since Pope Francis's most recent illness. So I think things are going to move rather quickly. I think the number of cardinals who are really papabile is pretty small. I think you could basically count them on one hand. So I don't think it's going to be long now. I mean, just as young people are returning to the church because they want stability, they want order, they want orthodoxy.
Yes.
I think the Vatican wants some stability too. And so I think it's going to happen fast.